Site for Wight Talking News for Friday the 4th of December 2020.
This is Chris reading an article from the Isle of Wight County Press. Milk and more deliveries to cease on the Isle of Wight on Christmas Eve. Milk and More have been delivering fresh milk and produce to households across the Isle of Wight for decades, but that is all due to come to an end on Christmas Eve when the local milkmen make their last rounds. Isle of Wight customers have been informed via letter that their service will cease to operate from the 24th of December this year. The expiry of the company's lease on a building at Riverway in Newport has been blamed for the move. No suitable alternative premises that are cost-effective to operate have been found. The rattling of milk bottles during the early hours has been a feature of island life for decades. Depots used to be found in Newport, Ryde and Sandown back in the Unigate days, but over the years the demand has fallen. Unigate transformed to Dairy Crest and more recently Milk and More. Bottles delivered in the run-up to Christmas will be collected by New Year's Eve. An update from a spokesman for Milk and More has said, "The lease at our Newport distribution centre on the Isle of Wight expires in 2021 and we have been unable to find a suitable alternative location. Following a detailed review, we have reluctantly concluded that it is no longer cost-effective to operate on the island and we will close the site by the end of December 2020. We will do everything we can to minimise the impact to customers and will offer suggestions for alternative delivery options."
This is Brian reading an article from the Isle of Wight Observer. E-scooter trial attracts attention of the Isle of Wight Police. Island Police have issued a warning to e-scooter riders following a series of complaints just days after a trial was launched on the island. Several people have been photographed riding e-scooters on the dual carriageway, pavement and other illegal areas. A police spokesman said changes have been made to the law so that e-scooters that are hired are legal to use in a public place with some exceptions. However, personal e-scooters cannot be used in a public place. This is illegal. They can only be used on private land. I can assure you that we have seized privately owned e-scooters that have been used in a public place. It is likely that you will receive one or all of the following. Your scooter will be seized. You will be charged a recovery and daily storage fee. You may receive 6 points on your licence and a £300 fine for driving otherwise than in accordance with a licence. You may receive 6 points and a £300 fine for having no insurance. Due to these two offences totalling 12 points, which will ban you from driving, you will be sent to court and you can explain to the magistrate or the judge why you were riding an e-scooter. There are other issues, including driving with no MOT and tax. You may find that you incur a penalty for this as well. This is the law. If you are an enthusiast and want these legalised, riding them now will not help. Any plans to have them legalised may be pushed back. If you have issues with the law, then you should write to your MP. The spokesman continued, "An e-scooter is classified as a personal light electric vehicle, PLEV. You can use it on a road or a designated cycle lane. Beryl scooters currently have a maximum speed of 12.5 miles per hour. You cannot do the following: ride it on a pavement, use it on the dual carriageway, use it for fun, and do stunts. It is to be used by one rider at a time. You must have signed up to the Beryl app, which will verify your age and that you hold a provisional driver's licence. You cannot drink or drug drive, and you cannot carry passengers. You must follow the highway code. You can't ride it through a no entry or the wrong way down a one-way street. Doing any of these things makes you liable for arrest, a fine, points on your driver's licence, and/or a court appearance.
Quick thinking by harbourmaster saves 10-year-old boy, from Isle of Wight Observer. A quick-thinking Ryde Harbour helped save a youngster after he fell off a seawall into the icy water on Sunday lunchtime. The boy was joined by his two friends who both jumped in to try and help him out. Ryde Inshore Rescue was called out along with both the Needles and Ventnor Coast Guard rescue teams and Gosport and Fareham Inshore Rescue Service. However, the harbourmaster threw a life ring to the stricken boy to pull him to safety while his friends were able to get back onto the shore on their own. The Isle of Wight Ambulance Service was on the scene with 2 ambulance crews to assess the boy, who was taken to St Mary's Hospital as a precautionary measure. A spokesperson for HM Coast Guard said, HM Coast Guard received a 999 call just before 12:25 after a 10-year-old boy fell into the water at Ryde Harbour and 2 of his friends entered the water after him. Needles and Ventnor Coast Guard rescue teams, Gosport and Ryde independent lifeboats and Isle of Wight ambulance were also sent. 2 of the boys self-recovered, the other was rescued by the Ryde harbourmaster, who was able to throw the boy a life ring and bring him to shore.
This is Michael reading an article from the Isle of Wight County Press. Police statement as COVID tiers replace lockdown. We know that our role is an important one, says Hampshire Constabulary's Assistant Chief Constable. Maggie Blythe warns that blatant breaches of the rules will face robust enforcement action, though the force is trying to explain and educate in the first instance. In a statement, she says the force is working to make sure travellers are aware that the Isle of Wight and Hampshire are in different tiers. The Isle of Wight enters Tier 1, while Hampshire has joined Tier 2 under the new coronavirus rules. She said the vast majority of people have observed the regulations in place over recent months. I'd like to thank them all for their concerted efforts to restrict the spread of the virus in such challenging times. We know the ongoing impact these restrictions have on people's lives. We will continue to follow the approach of engaging, explaining and encouraging people to comply with the restrictions, but blatant breaches will face robust enforcement action from our officers. We will continue to maintain COVID-19 related patrols as required, in addition to usual policing as we move into the tiered system. This is to address any problems that are identified to us and ensure that people are observing the restrictions in place to prevent the spread of the virus. Everyone must observe the restrictions from the highest tier that they are travelling from or to at all times. We will not be preventing people from travelling from one area to another, but are working with ferry operators and partner agencies to ensure that people are informed about the different restrictions in place on the Isle of Wight as compared to the rest of Hampshire. Maggie Blythe said, "There are individuals and children that will continue to suffer from the impact of domestic abuse during government restrictions. This is worse during a period behind closed doors where contact with other people like friends and family is restricted. Anyone who is facing abuse or harm should call 999. If you're not in a position to speak, press 55 and our controllers will know what to do. We are there for you. Please call us if you need us in an emergency. With more people potentially leaving home to return to work following the recent lockdown and the darker evenings, I'd also urged everyone to look at the burglary crime prevention advice on the Hampshire Constabulary website. Make sure you lock up properly. Don't leave Christmas presents on view, and leave a light on to deter opportunistic thieves. With many small businesses potentially reopening this week, I'd also advise owners and their staff to check that their premises remained secure during the recent restrictions, and that systems like CCTV and alarms remain in good working order now that they are retrading and having cash in the building. She said, through the pandemic, use of technology has boomed, with individuals using online solutions to purchase, access and make use of goods and services more than ever before. If you're buying presents online, please make sure you check whether the site you're using is reputable.
This is Patrina reading an article from the Isle of Wight County Press. Fly tipping damaging a home of Isle of Wight red squirrels and dormice. Illegal fly tipping is damaging the homes of the island's rare hazel dormouse and red squirrels. Brittlesford Woods is a precious nature reserve, but incidents of people dumping rubbish there, just up the road from Lynn Bottom Tip, is on the increase. Brittlesford is home to a number of rare species, including hazel dormice and red squirrels, who thrive in the ancient semi-natural woodlands. Wildlife charity People's Trust for Endangered Species, a PTES, which has owned Brittlesford Wood since 1992, warned that fly tipping at Lynn Common is damaging precious flora and fauna across the nature reserve. Now the charity is calling for anyone who sees rubbish being dumped at Lynn Common or in any part of Brittlesford Woods to report the vehicles involved to the Isle of Wight Council, Hampshire Police, via 101 or to PTES directly via inquiries at ptes.org. Linda Bauer, PTES Conservation Officer, said, Brittlesford is a unique woodland. Not only is it one of the few places in the UK where both hazel dormice and red squirrels, classified as vulnerable and endangered on the red list for Britain's animals earlier this year, can be found, but is also home to two rare species of bat bastables, also listed as vulnerable, and bichsteins. Brittlesford is a site of special scientific interest and a special area for conservation, which gives it the highest legal protection. But sadly, this doesn't prevent fly tipping from happening. We've been working tirelessly over the last 20 years to maintain this special habitat so that local flora and fauna can flourish. Our conservation work will be undone if fly tipping continues, so we're urging this to stop, for waste to be disposed of correctly and for any incidents to be reported. On top of the damage caused to our beautiful woodland, we also have to pay for the rubbish to be removed, which is a cost to the charity that should be spent on much-needed conservation. Brittlesford is a key stronghold for a stable population of hazel dormice, whose populations have declined by more than 50% nationally since 2000. Red squirrels are only found at a few sites across the UK, including Brittlesford. Nationally, their populations have been steadily declining since the introduction of grey squirrels. In 2006, 5,000 native trees were planted, grown from seed collected at Brittlesford. A total of 14 ponds have been created, providing drinking water for the cattle that graze the site, as well as many mammals and birds. These ponds are also a key breeding site for dragonflies and various amphibians. Narrow-leaved lugworth, a woodland plant only found in ancient British woodlands on the shores and tributaries of the Solent, grows in abundance there. A long rotation, 15 to 20 years, of hazel coppice ensures the hazel dormice and red squirrels have a steady supply of hazelnuts. Light reaches the woodland floor through a network of rides, paths through the woodland, and glades, benefiting wildflowers, butterflies, and numerous invertebrates. To report any incidents of fly tipping in the woods, contact the Isle of Wight Council, Hampshire Police, via 101.
This is Chris reading an article from the Isle of Wight County Press. COVID vaccine hubs named. Where is Isle of Wight? The Isle of Wight will not have one of the first COVID vaccination hubs in the country, meaning islanders may have to wait a bit longer for the groundbreaking vaccine. Despite the island's MP, Bob Seeley's believing the island would be a priority area for the COVID vaccine, a list of NHS trusts across the country has been published of hubs which will receive the first doses. The Isle of Wight NHS Trust is not on the list, with the nearest to the island being Portsmouth Hospital University Trust. Speaking at the Downing Street briefing last night, Sir Simon Stevens, NHS Chief Executive, set out the details of who, when and how the vaccine would be rolled out in the biggest vaccination campaign in history, with the bulk of the vaccines delivered from January to April. He said, with the vaccines having to be so carefully controlled, being stored at -70 degrees and coming in packs of 975 doses, they cannot at this point be distributed to individual GPs and pharmacies. The phasing of deliveries, Sir Simon said, will see more than 50 hospital hubs in England start to offer the vaccines to those at the top of the priority list from next week. This will be followed in subsequent weeks with GPs coming together in local areas to provide vaccination centres, asking people to come in for the vaccine on an invitation-only basis. If the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency gives its approval to split the 975 dose packs, then it would be possible to distribute the vaccines further to GP surgeries and pharmacies, which could mean some islanders could get their first dose of the vaccination before the end of the year. Letter to NHS Trust chief executives sent at the end of November by those running the vaccination deployment programmes has said if a trust is not a vaccination hub, a plan must cover how you will work with the nearest hub to vaccinate its workforce and how it would deliver the vaccine within the trust when it becomes possible. Recommendations have been made by the Government's Joint Committee on Vaccination and Immunisation on those who are of highest risk and should be vaccinated first, starting with those over 80, those in care homes and some frontline care staff.
This is Chris reading an article from On the Wight. Free Isle of Wight parking offers during December. The Isle of Wight Council are highlighting a range of free parking offers in the coming month, starting on this Saturday for Small Business Saturday. A range of free parking offers is coming up this month, starting on Small Business Saturday, 5th of December. Shoppers will get opportunities to park for free in council car parking across the island as they head back to town centre shops and traders for COVID-19 safe shopping this festive season. Most stores and businesses will be open as normal, and despite the unusual trading conditions this year, there will be some attractive deals to be had on the Isle of Wight, quality goods and produce. As part of the Council's emphasis on safer shopping, free parking won't be limited to a few days this year, but spread out to allow shoppers to choose less busy times to visit their favourite stores. On Small Business Saturday, 5th of December, there will be free off-street parking in council long-stay car parks across the island between 12 p.m. and 6 p.m. With financial support from Newport and Carisbrooke Community Council, there will be 30 minutes of free on-street parking in Newport from Monday the 7th of December, every day until New Year's Eve. Off-street parking in council long-stay car parks in all parts of the island will be free from 3 p.m. until 6 p.m. every day from next Monday, the 7th of December, until New Year's Eve. And on Christmas Eve, for those last-minute purchases, there will be free off-street parking in every long-stay council car park all day until 6 p.m. Councillor Wayne Whittle said, "We're supporting local business throughout the month because it's the right thing to do in this pandemic. Business owners across the whole island are working hard to keep everyone safe, and you can expect that as stores reopen, they will have new ways to shop and keep staff and customers socially distant. We must not let our guard down. We all need to think of our island community, so please make good choices and shop safely this festive season." Councillor Julie Jones-Evans explained, "It's a great example of shaping Newport Partnership in action, supporting the community and emphasising the value of our historic county town as a destination for the whole island. Newport and Carisbrooke Community Council is happy to subsidise the scheme to not only encourage people to come to Newport, but also as an extra boost for those many traders who have been working so hard to support their customers and keep going through the COVID-19 crisis."
This is Brian reading an article from the Isle of Wight Observer. Operation Holly launched. Island Police have launched Operation Holly, a one-month campaign to target drink and drug drivers. Throughout the month, the police will be carrying out breath tests, drug tests, and field impairment tests at every opportunity. A spokesman said, "We need your help to help make our roads safer. We would encourage the public to report drink and drug drivers with as much information and detail as possible so that they can be targeted. If you know someone who drink or drug drives, you can report them on 101 or through Crime Stoppers on 0800 555 111. However, if a person is an immediate risk to the public and themselves, we suggest people call 999. The message is simple. It's not worth the risk to drink alcohol and or take drugs and then get behind the wheel over the festive season."
Council leader slams Isle of Wight booze cruise idea as irresponsible. From Isle of Wight Radio. The leader of the Isle of Wight Council has branded those planning to come to the Isle of Wight for a so-called booze cruise irresponsible. The comments come nearly a week after Councillor Dave Stewart told Isle of Wight Radio in an exclusive interview now is not the time to visit the Isle of Wight, as first reported by Isle of Wight Radio. Councillor Dave Stewart said he was deeply alarmed to read online reports suggesting people might be planning to visit the island for drinking sessions. To help #keep the island safe, council officers will be ensuring COVID-secure measures are in place over the weekend, focusing on the island's main getaway towns. Councillor Stewart said, "Suggestions of so-called booze cruises visiting the island are completely irresponsible and I hope ill-founded. We're working hard with the police and the ferry companies to put out messages that such behaviour is totally irresponsible, and we will be supporting local businesses in managing any groups in a COVID-secure way that arrive with this intent. Our message is that wherever you live, it's important to play your part by following the rules. All we ask is that anyone coming over from Tier 2 must remember that Tier 1 rules do not apply to them and they must follow their own tier's restrictions. This means if you're planning to dine out or have a drink when you're on the island, you must not socialise with anybody outside of your household or support bubble in any indoor setting. You can see friends and family you do not live with or do not have a support bubble with, outdoors only in a group of no more than 6. People should still maintain social distancing with anyone they do not live with. Those living in Tier 3 should avoid travel altogether unless the journey is essential." Meanwhile, the hospitality sector has a number of restrictions in place to ensure they remain COVID-secure environments. These include limiting bookings and tables of groups of no more than 6, ensuring adequate spacing between tables to allow for social distancing, public to remain seated with table service where alcohol is served. Those travelling to the island are asked to do so the white way by following these simple steps. Plan and book your journey, wear a face covering on public transport and enclosed spaces. Maintain a social distance, wash and sanitize your hands regularly, isolate and get tested if you have symptoms, a new contagious cough, loss or change of sense of smell or taste or a high temperature. If you've not done so already, download the NHS app. Councillor Stewart added, "We must continue to practice hands-face space at all times, and I would suggest always think carefully about what we are doing with new freedoms we currently enjoy. Just because we can do something doesn't mean we have to, and we should always do it, having due regard to the risks of transmission of the virus it might bring."
This is Michael reading an article from the Isle of Wight County Press. "We don't want a death in our road," says Ryde family. A road on the outskirts of Ryde where one driver brought down a telegraph pole, among other incidents, is not regarded as dangerous by Ireland roads. One family in Carter's Road between Upton Cross and the Smallbrook roundabout in Ryde have been trying to get more protective measures to stop any more accidents, particularly on the final corner of a series of bends as you head towards Smallbrook, where a driver was disqualified from driving for 6 months for failure to stop and report a crash after smashing into a telegraph pole, which residents say split in half. Francesca Cooper, who grew up and still lives on a small holding on that corner, said it was complete luck the driver escaped injury, but it has been an ongoing problem for as long as she could remember, with anywhere between 2 or 4 accidents a year. Since the incident, Francesca has made it her mission to get physical measures put in place to make the corner safer before a fatal crash does occur. She said, "There is no delineation now. People have driven through the hedge into our field so many times now, there isn't really even a hedge there, and there is not much point in us planting one as people keep going into it. As you go around the corner, you can hardly see them. There are 2 bollards, and they quite often get knocked over, and someone must come and put them back up. There used to be a row of bollards there, but then they got knocked down, and no one bothered to put them back up again." Francesca said their field directly behind the corner is now too dangerous for her children to play in and for livestock to be kept in, as the hedge has been driven through so many times. The road has a national speed limit, but Francesca says lowering it may not be as helpful because even though people do cautiously come round the bends, some still cause incidents by not turning further and driving straight into the hedges. She has been raising the issue with Island Roads since March 2019, but has always been told nothing can be done and it is on a waiting list that will be reviewed in 6 months in regards to reducing the speed limit. Councillor Vanessa Churchman, ward representative for the area, said she has asked on several occasions for the speed limit on Carter's Road to be reduced, but has not succeeded. With the expansion of the nearby Roebuck County Park and a two-way entrance being made, Councillor Churchman is concerned there will be a serious accident due to speed of traffic and the busy nature of the road. Recently, a car had to be written off after it crashed into a bollard and damaged one of Francesca's roadside trees. Island Roads, however, said its road safety data does not suggest Carter's Road is a high-risk route. An Island Roads spokesperson said the record showed there has been one slight injury reported in the last 3 years when a motorist lost control of their vehicle in wet, nighttime conditions. They said road safety is the #1 priority for Island Roads, and we constantly review the network to ensure it is as safe as possible. We will, of course, look at these latest concerns and make any appropriate recommendations to the Isle of Wight Council. Furthermore, a project has commenced reviewing the suitability of speed limits across the island in line with both national and local guidance, and Carter's Road will, of course, be part of this work. The findings of this review will be known next year.
This is Patrina reading an article from the Isle of Wight County Press. Ferry lounges are not COVID super spreaders, say Red Funnel and White Link. Cross-Solent ferry operators have outlined their reason for passengers having to leave their vehicles during crossings, amid concern that ferries could become super spreaders of COVID. A temporary waiver granted by the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency is still in place, which allows ferry operators discretion to run sailings in which all passengers can stay in their vehicles. Both Whitelink and Red Funnel say due to the volume of vehicles and freights they carry, this is no longer possible, and their COVID-secure status means travel in the lounges are safe. Vulnerable passengers can request in advance a dispensation. West Wight journalist and campaigner Jonathan Young believes having everyone together in the ferry lounges means the crossings have the potential to become super spreader events, and he has been emailing MP Bob Seeley to ask for support in asking the ferry companies to allow people to remain in their vehicles. Jonathan said, "I imagine there will be many hundreds of visitors coming over on these crossings in the run-up to Christmas and going on to multi-generational house parties. I fully understand what sage Professor Andrew Hayward means when he spoke of a recipe for regret. This year there will be an added pressure of visitors attracted by our Tier 1 status. Almost all parts of the country with higher infection rates than ours. Together with the telescoping of the pre-Christmas part of the national relaxation into December 23rd and 24th. To put it bluntly, many of these crossings could easily assume the characteristics of a super spreader event. For me, the bottom line is if the operators need to sacrifice operational efficiency and commercial opportunities for the sake of public safety, then they must be the one forcefully encouraged to do so. A spokesperson for Red Funnel said, "The stay-in-vehicle crossing service was temporarily implemented as an exceptional measure during lockdown. We worked with the MCA to agree complex mitigation actions that permitted us to run some crossings on which all passengers had to remain in their vehicles. However, it is no longer possible for Red Funnel to operate in this manner due to the volume of vehicles and freight we are obliged to carry throughout the day to ensure an adequate supply of crossings to meet the constant flow of demand, particularly that from islanders travelling to the mainland for work or for other reasons, and the steady two-way stream of freight traffic. In alignment with the government's ending to shielding recommendations, Red Funnel returned to operating as normal. It should be noted that we cannot allow passengers to stay in their vehicles when we have hazardous goods on boards. This mitigation has been approved by the MCA to ensure the safety of passengers. Running sailings whereby all passengers must remain in their vehicles sufficiently limits the total number of vehicles we can carry. Given current levels of demand, especially freight, operating in this format would significantly inconvenience passengers due to crossings filling up and selling out quickly. This would also cause significant disruption to supply chains. Whilst it's tempting to suggest we ran these crossings before, so we ought to run them again, the reality is that total travel demand during the lockdown versus demand today is very different, making a far from like-for-like comparison. Red Funnel also said unheated car decks would make for an unpleasant crossing during the winter months. They emphasised how clean and COVID-secure the ferries are. Red Funnel is also running at just 39% of normal capacity to permit greater social distancing, to a maximum of 350 passengers instead of the usual 892. Red Jets are currently capped at 148 passengers, which is 52% of normal capacity. A spokesperson for Whitelink said, "Safety is our first priority. Whitelink's policy is that drivers and passengers leave their vehicles after embarking ferries and make the crossing in the lounges or outside decks. These are the safest places for passengers to travel and meet all the regulatory standards." Whitelink previously made an agreement with the MCA to allow people to stay in their cars on a temporary basis, and on account of very low passenger numbers at the beginning of the pandemic. As many more people are now travelling, customer safety and regulations mean that passengers must leave their vehicles after embarkation and cross the Solent in the large passenger lounges. All Whitelink ships are spacious, with plenty of room for everyone to find seats and respect social distancing. As far as I am aware, there is no evidence to suggest that ferries are in any way super spreaders. We did not see a significant rise in infection rates following the first lockdown, when visitor numbers were up, so this may be perception rather than reality. I would be very interested to hear any evidence to the contrary. The ferry companies have worked closely with each other, the Isle of Wight Council, Public Health England, and Isle of Wight Transport Infrastructure Board, Visit Isle of Wight, and others to ensure islanders and visitors are kept safe, and I thank them for that. With regard to stay-in-car sailings, my understanding is that this was possible when vehicle numbers on ferries were very low, but would not be deemed safe on busier crossings. As with everything during this pandemic, it's about weighing up the risks and striking a balance. We must also remember that while the island is fortunate enough to be one of only 3 areas in the country in Tier 1, with fewer restrictions on movement, a large proportion of the country is operating under much tighter restrictions. Those in Tier 3, for example, are advised to avoid travel outside of their area.
Good afternoon, this is Lisa, CEO of Site for Wight, welcoming you to this week's Talking News. It has been an extremely busy week. We have been working with our celebrity readers and our judges to finalise the story writing competition winners. The virtual awards ceremony will be taking place on Monday the 7th of December at 7 p.m, and anyone is free to join us for an evening of carols, songs, poetry and of course, crucially, the results for each category. As usual, there are 4 categories: the under 12s, the 12 to 17s and the over 18s, and finally the highly commended category. We added this category last year in order to recognise someone who has written a piece which, whilst it was not a winning piece, it showed superb potential to be a future winner. We have also spent the week finalising the raffle prizes, and I cannot be more delighted to tell you that not only have we secured the £125 cash prize as a donation, we have also now 125 other individually wrapped raffle prizes. We couldn't believe the generosity of people in these hard times coming forward and offering such good raffle prizes to us. Thank you, each and every one of you. This week, we have also been finalising our research for the 125-year birthday celebration, which will be taking place over the next few months. We had planned to hold various events during 2020, but unfortunately, COVID restrictions have stopped this. However, the December newsletter will have lots of information of history, how we are working now, and how we plan to work in the future. So we have been finalising this week, and we are very much looking forward to the final product, which will go to print next week. Finally, we've spent this week welcoming Elaine into the office. She has been already working so hard to set up all of the policies and procedures to get the befriending service up and running before Christmas. Further information will follow to every member individually by telephone and letter as the scheme takes its shape. Thank you very much for listening to our Talking News this week, and we look forward to hearing from you. Don't ever forget you can call us on 522205. We are here to help you. Thank you very much. Lisa, stay safe.
Scaffolding news for week commencing the 7th of December 2020. Newport area, 54 Fairley Road, 66 St James Street, Halifax High Street. Ventnor area, Southview Grove Road, 1 Pier Street, 2 Duke's Cottage, 26 St Catherine Street. Shanklin, 9 Regent Street, 49 High Street. Sandown area, 2 Pier Street, White City Culver Parade, 20 High Street. Ryde area, 11 to 12 Esplanade, 31 Cross Street, 9 Cross Street, 168A High Street, 23 St John's Road. Cowes area, Rope Walks Court, Mill Hill Road, Carphone Warehouse High Street, 75 High Street, The Lodge Church Road, Nat West Bank High Street. East Cowes area, 12 Ferry Road. Skip news, Cowes area, 170 Mill Hill Road, 1 Consort Road, 72 High Street. Gurnard area, Plot Shaw Road. Bembridge area, Village Hall High Street. Seaview area, Outside Woodlands, Ryde Road. Sandown area, 5 Albert Road and Sandown Pier. Newport area, 54 Barton Road. Yarmouth area, Public Toilets, Bridge Road.
Site for Wight would like to thank you for listening to this week's edition of the Talking News. We would also like to thank our volunteers for reading, and a particular thank you to the Isle of Wight County Press, Isle of Wight Observer, On the Wight, and Isle of Wight Radio. A special thank you must go to Vexis Radio, who has helped us get vital information to our members. Goodbye for now.